Good evening. Last week, we had just wrapped up Job chapter 17. And so where we're at in the story of Job overall is that Job has proclaimed his innocence to his friends after lamenting the terrible things that have befallen him. And his friends are of the opinion that Job has done something that brought this on himself. And so after Job's lament and making known his sorrows, his friends feel like this is on Job, and they're trying to call their friend to repentance. Job, in response to them, restates his innocence, that he has done no such thing. And as the conversation goes back and forth, we see both sides are kind of digging their heels in. Job keeps proclaiming his innocence and sticking to his convictions while trying to still express his sorrow and his frustration at his confusion, while his friends keep trying to bring Job to repentance and are getting frustrated at his apparent desire to stay in his sinful state. And so that's kind of where we find ourselves. And as the conversation continues, it gets more and more direct. It gets more and more mean back and forth on both sides. There's a lot of calling each other a windbag that keeps happening. And we're going to see some more of that tonight. So if you would, turn over to Job chapter 18. Job chapter 18. Now, last week we left off with Job speaking, calling his friends terrible comforters, which they are right now. And Job expressed that. He expressed a few other thoughts about the hopeless state that he felt that he was in. And in response to this, we have Bildad speaking up again. Bildad the Shuhite, or Bildad the Blunt, because he is, he's just very direct. And so Bildad here, starting in verse 1, it says, "Then Bildad the Shuhite responded, 'How long will you hunt for words? Show understanding, and then we can talk. Why are we regarded as animals, as stupid in your eyes? You who tear yourself in your anger, should the earth be abandoned for your sake, or the rock moved from its place?'" So we see right off the bat here that Bildad is kind of bandying words just the way that the rest of them have. He says, "Show understanding, and then we'll talk." Show me that you're capable of some rational thought here, and then maybe we can have a conversation, right? So right off the bat, starting out very blunt. And he did say, "Why are we regarded as animals in your eyes?" Well, not too long ago, Job had said how the basic wisdom that they've been spouting at him, an animal could teach to him because it's so basic, right? So this is kind of Bildad responding to that. Why are you saying that we're dumb like animals? You think we're stupid, and we're trying to help you, dummy. So Bildad is getting very frustrated at Job's apparent lack of wanting to move towards repentance, right? Bildad, in his eyes, in his mind, is laying out everything that Job has to do, and Job just won't respond to it. And so he's getting his frustrations out here. In verse 4, he even says, "You who tear yourself in your anger." Well, back in chapter 16 and verse 9, if you flip back just a chapter or two, in chapter 16, verse 9, when Job was talking, Job had made the statement, "His anger," speaking of God, "his anger has torn me and hunted me down. He has gnashed at me with his teeth." And so Job had been saying, God's anger is tearing at me. He's tearing me to pieces. And yet Bildad, in his opinion, seems to think, well, no, Job, this is you. You're causing this. You're tearing yourself up. Your anger over your situation, which again, Bildad feels is just. He thinks that God is rewarding Job's behavior justly. He might not know specifically what Job has done, but he knows that God is just. And if God is allowing Job to suffer these things, then the only conclusion can be that Job must have done some terrible thing deserving of this, right? And so in response to Job saying that God's attacking me and causing this, Bildad is saying, well, you brought this on yourself. You know, it's really you. So that's kind of the tone that we've got here at the beginning of chapter 18. But this part here, he says, at the latter half of verse 4, he says, should the earth be abandoned for your sake, or the rock moved from its place? Well, what's that supposed to mean? What does Bildad mean by those words? Matt?
Kind of like the earth doesn't revolve around you. You're not the center of the universe, Job.
Yeah.
You're just wrong. You need to...
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. Yeah, one of our expressions would probably be the earth doesn't revolve around you, you know, is, well, why should all of nature move itself out of your way here, you know, like you've got it all wrong, you know. Again, from Bildad's perspective, Job is crying, oh, woe is me, when he shouldn't deserve that, you know. Bildad thinks that Job has brought this on himself somehow. He goes on and he says, indeed, the light of the wicked goes out. And so again, this is very pointed at who he thinks the wicked is. He said, indeed, the light of the wicked goes out, and the spark from his fire does not shine. The light in his tent is darkened, and his lamp goes out above him. His vigorous stride is shortened, and his own plan brings him down. For he is thrown into the net by his own feet, and he steps on the webbing. A snare seizes him by the heel, and a trap snaps shut on him. And I guess verse 10 kind of goes along with that. A noose for him is hidden in the ground, a trap for him on the pathway. So these couple verses here all kind of carry the same tone, which is what? What's it saying? Yeah, you know, caught by your own devices, right? You know, and we say similar things, right? You know, we talk about the fact that, you know, when you spin a wicked web or things like that, you know, that if you lay these terrible plans, there's a good chance that you're going to bring about your own destruction, right? If you're devising on a way to bring somebody else down, there's a good chance that you're going to bring yourself down in some way. And again, we've made this point before, how there's actually wisdom in that, right? This is some basic general wisdom. If you're plotting and scheming against somebody, there's a very good chance that it's going to backfire in your face and you're going to end up hurting yourself, right? These are basic general proverbs and thoughts and themes of wisdom that persisted in the ancient world, and we still have those today. And so again, Bildad is just restating all these things to him. Matt?
And this really does remind me of Proverbs chapter 1, where he talks about the young man getting involved in the gang and getting caught in their own trap. This is the same language.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and like I said, we have such similar concepts and ideas and phrases and idioms today where we talk about very similar things. And so that's the idea here, is that Bildad he really is just using the world's wisdom, the ancient wisdom of the day, and putting it on Job. The problem is Job, in this rare case, he's this exception here. He's a good man who's suffering some terrible things. And again, we as the audience, the reader, we know why, but Job and his friends don't, right? Other thoughts or comments? So he goes on here, after talking about these traps, he says, all around, sudden terrors frighten him and harass him at every step. His strength is famished, and disaster is ready at his side. It devours parts of his skin. The firstborn of death devours his limbs. So verse 12 and 13 probably feels pretty pointed towards Job, right? Talking about his skin devouring itself. Well, what was Job suffering from? He had the boils all over his skin, right? He had a skin affliction, you know, and we know that that's a painful thing, that it's a terrible thing to suffer. So this is kind of, again, this is Bildad pointing out, look, this is the wisdom here. Your own skin is turning against you. You are living proof of my argument, right? So that's kind of the point he's making. He says, he is torn from the security of his tent, and they march him before the king of terrors. Who's the king of terrors? Who's Bildad talking about?
Probably Satan.
Satan? Okay.
God and his judgment.
God and his judgment, perhaps? There's a possibility that this is a poetic way to say death, personifying death. You know, he's marched before death. It's not really clear who exactly he's referring to here. So I just wanted to see what everyone else thought. But he goes on in verse 15. He says, nothing of his dwells in his tent. Brimstone is scattered on his home. His roots are dried below, and his branch withers above. The memory of him perishes from the earth, and he has no name abroad. He is driven from light into darkness, and is chased from the inhabited world. He has no offspring or descendants among his people, nor any survivor where he resided. So now we can see Bildad's really, kind of twisting the knife there a little bit. With the comments about the skin earlier, that's very pointed at Job, right? But having no offspring, no survivor where he resided, that is a very, very blunt and cruel statement on Bildad's behalf, right? Now, why do you think that Bildad would say such a thing to someone that he's calling his friend? I mean, he's reminding Job that he lost all of his children, that he lost several servants. So why make such an insensitive remark? Rick?
Well, right off my first thought was that he's trying to shock him into reality, kind of be blunt and sort of firm and maybe even harsh, but kind of bring him back into reality, what he thinks is reality.
Yeah, I would agree because, again, put yourself in Bildad's shoes for just a minute, right? You see your friend, and again, in Bildad's mind, his friend has brought something terrible on himself. He's brought God's wrath on him, okay? Now, your friend has lost everything. He's lost his kids, he's lost his home, his livelihood, his livestock, servants, all of those things. What's left for Job to lose? His life and his soul, right? So, what is there for Bildad to risk here? In Bildad's mind, Job is on that path to destruction. So if he is very blunt with Job, and Job keeps going down that dark path, well, he's already on that trajectory. So it's not like you're risking anything. On the other hand, if you can shock your friend into seeing the sad state of his life, maybe he'll come back to repentance. Right? Maybe he'll see, oh, wow, this is terrible. This is a terrible state to be in. I brought this on myself, and come back. You can almost imagine that Bildad is thinking something along the lines of a prodigal son situation, right? Where you kind of wake up and you realize what a terrible life you're in. And so I think that is probably the mindset that Bildad has. Now, again, we know otherwise here what the real situation is, but I think that kind of helps to understand why Bildad is being so insensitive, because who would do that to their friend? Who would be bringing up their dead kids so soon after that, right? It's really this shock factor, I think, that Bildad is going for. Thoughts or questions or opinions on that? Kim?
It's hurtful in verse 17 when you read that the memory of him will perish, and he has no name. Nobody will ever remember him. It's as if you didn't live. There's nothing about you that ever mattered. You didn't have a family. You didn't have a home. You didn't have wealth. You didn't have all these animals and servants and on that we know about Job when we read chapter 1.
Right.
nothing. So you're nothing.
Yeah.
It's really hurtful.
Rick?
Almost more of a question to think about. So it's been, what, a week?
I think so, yeah.
All these things happened.
Because all these things happen back to back to back.
So yeah, this is all really fresh.
Yeah.
Still. Wow. Yeah.
And then they sat in silence for a week.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a week. I don't know how long these conversations happen.
I don't either, but I was just thinking
over the course of a day or two, maybe. But it can't have been that long, right? Even if you and I just read the pieces back and forth to each other, this still could easily take place in a day. So yeah, so this is very fresh for him. And then he says, Bildad going on here, says, those in the west are appalled at his fate, and those in the east are seized with horror, essentially saying far and wide, everyone is appalled and terrified at what's happened to you, right? And then you could argue that this is the most hurtful thing that he's said thus far. In verse 21, he says, certainly these are the dwellings of the wicked. Okay, so these are the consequences of wickedness, probably pointing out Job, thinking he's the wicked one, because he says, and this is the place of him who does not know God, right? And that might be, you could argue, the most hurtful thing he could say to Job is that you don't know God the way that you say that you do. You proclaim that you have this right relationship with him, that you're close to him, that you call on the Lord by name, but you don't have that relationship with him, right? And again, in Bildad's mind, the evidence is all around. It's what's happened to Job. That's his supporting evidence here based on wisdom as he understands it. And so, yeah, he's saying, Job, look at your life. You lost everything, and you don't have this relationship you think you do with God. Right?
Yeah, he's pretty much saying you're going to be an example of what happens to the wicked, right?
Yeah.
Far and wide, people are going to know you as the bad example, right?
Yeah. I mean, think of examples that we would use even out of the Bible, right? If I asked you to name a bad, wicked person out of the Bible, you might say Jezebel. You might say Pharaoh or Ahab or maybe Judas, right? Those are some of the key ones that pop to the beginning of my mind, and you might have a couple others as well, but you might have some of those on the list as well, because even among the bad people, they're like the super bad, right? And so Bildad's saying that that's going to be Job. Job's going to be at the top of that list. When you say bad person, Job's going to pop up there for people, right? So yeah, pretty harsh words coming from Bildad.
Well, whenever we have a situation even today, when someone has sinned and we know they're sinning, we know they're living in sin, and you try your best to get them to repent and see they're wrong and they refuse, it's very frustrating. So, there's two sides of this. Job has nothing to repent of, but Bildad thinks you need to repent. And you're refusing to, so you're just wrong.
Now, was it wrong for Bildad to use that tactic? What do you think? Donna?
I think Bildad has a terribly big ego who wanted to be the one to shock Job into doing and confessing, and then he would be the hero who got him there.
Okay. Other thoughts? How does the New Testament tell us to correct a brother? With gentleness, right? Would you say reminding someone that their kid died a week ago, would you say that that's gentleness?
No, that's a hurtful thing.
Yeah. So I think that the lesson here for us, maybe when we're confronting someone, is gentleness, right? Let's not maybe use Bildad's particular method. Certainly the persistence is something to be admired, that he's still sticking with it and he cares about his friend. That is the good part. But perhaps the way that we address someone could be done with a little bit more compassion, right? Rick?
Right. Compassion. It also says with fear and humility. Remember that we need to be humble and be aware that we don't want to fall prey to the same mistakes.
Right, absolutely.
That's a good example, I guess, of that. So
yeah.
He didn't know what was going on.
Right. Now, when we flip over to chapter 19, I don't know if your Bible has headers in it. Mine does. Mine says, Job feels insulted. That's the very first line. I feel like that's probably an understatement of what Job was feeling right then and there with Bildad. But in verse 1 of chapter 19, it says, Then Job responded, How long will you torment me and crush me with words? That's a much more appropriate way to put that, right? He's being tormented and crushed by the things his friends are saying to him. He says, These 10 times you have insulted me, and you are not ashamed to wrong me. Right? I didn't go back and count. I don't know if he actually insulted him 10 times there, literally. More likely that's an expression. But he's saying, you're insulting me, and you're not even ashamed that you're insulting me like this. Job says, even if I have truly done wrong, my error stays with me. If indeed you exalt yourselves against me and prove my disgrace to me, know then that God has wronged me and has surrounded me with his net. Right? So what's he mean in verses 4 through 6? You know, he's saying, you guys are insulting me, and you should feel ashamed about that. But then what's he mean here in verses 4 to 6? Kim?
Gloating over him and bragging and using the humiliation and the suffering that Job is going through to make it against him, but then sort of like bring themselves up and exalt themselves and say, wow, you know, we are above reproach. We are not wicked and evil like you, so we're not suffering.
Yeah.
You are suffering. If he straight up tells them, verse 21, you don't know God, you're an evil, wicked man.
Yeah.
He labels them and says, that's why. If you don't know it by now, that's why.
Yeah. Matt?
Kind of feels like he's saying that you guys keep saying I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Well, even if I concede that point and that I'm wrong, I'm already being punished. So why are you piling on?
Yeah, exactly. Because he uses this qualifying statement, even if, right? He's saying, if this was the case, you guys are exalting yourselves to rub it in my face. You're just rubbing it in my face to make yourselves feel high and mighty, while God is already punishing me, if that were the case. So even if I was wrong, you guys are still being bad friends. You're insulting me right now, and it's hurtful, right? It's hurtful to Job.
Right. He's saying his error concerns just him alone.
Yeah.
Right. He said, so, I mean, it doesn't afflict them. It doesn't hurt them.
Right. Exactly. So then he goes on here, Job does, he says, Behold, I cry violence, but I get no answer. I shout for help, but there is no justice. So again, Job's going to start to explain to his friends, or at least try to help them understand how he feels. You know, he's feeling like he's crying for help, and nobody wants to help him here, right? He says, He has blocked my way so that I cannot pass, and he has put darkness on my paths. He has stripped my honor from me and removed the crown from my head. He breaks me down on every side, and I am gone. And he has uprooted my hope like a tree. He has also kindled his anger against me and considered me his enemy. His troops come together and build their way up against me and camp around my tent. Those last couple verses there, that's language that you would see in a siege, right? That's how armies attack enemies, right? They surround them, they capture their king, they strip the crown from him, breaks them down on every side, they're breaking down the walls. All of those language, that's all about a siege, right? But Job says he's in a tent, right? This is kind of how Job's being attacked, is God is coming at him with an entire army while Job is just this humble little tent. He's not some great mighty city or fortress. He's just this little tent, and he's being attacked by this giant siege army. That's how he feels. So Job is trying to use language to describe his helplessness. You know, attacked on every side by God, and here's just little old me, you know, and I can't even get help from my friends. I'm crying out for help, and there's no help for me. And he makes that more pointed in verse 13. He says, he has removed my brothers far from me. My acquaintances have completely turned away from me. I think it's very likely that when he says he's removed his brothers from me, I think he's talking about his friends here. What do you think? Yeah? Or maybe his better friends? Well, so spoiler, we are going to see one more surprise friend come in a couple chapters here. But yeah, maybe his better friends, you know, they're all gone from him. Job says, my relatives have failed, and my close friends have forgotten me. Those who live in my house and my servant women consider me a stranger. I am a foreigner in their sight. Well, you know, not only does Job look vastly different right now, but it stands to reason that, you know, whoever has of his servants who have survived, the ones that weren't out in the field that got attacked, so those in the house, and he says here, he names some other relatives and friends. They're all giving him a wide berth, and that's probably because they, like his other friends here, probably believe the proverbs of the ancient world, right? If someone is enduring such a crazy amount of suffering, it must be because they've done something bad, right? And that's the wisdom that Job said was very common in the world at that time, right? He said even the animals can tell you that wisdom. So this is common wisdom to everyone. And so it sounds like there's even more suffering hinted at here by Job than what we even realized in the beginning. You know, we're told of all the things that he endured, but now we're seeing that that's had an even broader effect. What people did remain around Job are now being pushed out further by this idea that Job may have done something terrible. He says, I call to my servant, but he does not answer. I have to implore his favor with my mouth, right? He can't even convince his servant to come help him out. And he's the master. Servant should answer at his call, right? And he's got to get his servant's favor to make it happen. My breath is offensive to my wife, and I am loathsome to my brothers. Well, we all know how Job's wife treated him. She didn't really care too much for the way that he was still sticking to his guns. And he's become loathsome to his brothers. Again, you know, that might be referring to these three friends here. Could be his actual brothers too. We don't know. Job goes so far, he says, even young children despise me. I stand up and they speak against me. Even little kids are picking up on the fact that nobody likes this guy, you know, and so they don't like him either, right? All my associates loathe me, and those I love have turned against me. My bone clings to my skin and my flesh, and I have escaped only by the skin of my teeth. Pity me, you friends of mine, for the hand of God has struck me. Why do you persecute me as God does? Are you not satisfied with my flesh? So after describing his hopeless state and how everybody seems to have abandoned him, how God is attacking him in this time, he's pleading with his friends. Isn't that enough for you? Why aren't my friends at least giving me pity? You know, pity me because I'm already enduring all of this. Isn't that enough? You know, can't you be satisfied that I'm in this sorry state? Even if your hypothesis is right and I've done some terrible thing, even if that was the case, why can't you just pity me in the sorry state that I'm in? And so that's kind of the first hopeless sounding half of Job chapter 19. Next week, we're going to dive into the second half of that chapter where Job kind of shows the strength of his convictions here. But before we do that, we do have time for one or two last questions or comments if there are any before we close for the night. Kim?
Can we redo that at the end of 19 there? I think another part of this we have to think about is how his appearance has changed.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we think about when we've been ill, maybe we had bad flu, there was sick of a bad cold, and we don't look our best.
Yeah.
I mean, I myself, I've gone through several cancers.
Yeah.
So I've changed in the way I look. And people didn't know how to react to that.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to look at myself when I looked in the mirror because I had changed from what I knew.
Yeah.
And, he talks about even the children look at me and the families, my wife doesn't know. Everybody would look at him and be like, look, but that's not the Job we know.
Yep.
That has changed in such a short time. And it makes an impact.
Yeah.
And back in verse 10 of 19, he talks about my hope is gone, and back in 17 he talks about, is there any hope for me? Like, he's really suffering on so many levels.
Yeah.
And they just keep pouring on.
Yeah, it's amazing that he's stuck it out this long, right? Other thoughts or comments before we close? All right. We'll pick up the second half of Job 19 next week. Thank you all.
So just want to talk to you a few minutes this evening about religion versus Christianity. Now, I had heard this presented, or at least a form of this. This is kind of my version. It's not word for word the same, but the idea is all the same there. The idea is to compare like a religious person to a Christian, because we can be religious about things, but not really be following Christ. So looking at this, we want to ask ourselves, are we religious or are we following Christ? Are we being a Christian? So I have like a baker's dozen, which is like 13 differences here between a religious person and a Christian. Now, hopefully, like me, some of these thoughts will be helpful to you. So a religious person lives a good life for the sake of living a good life. I used to do that. I understand this. A Christian lives a good life for Christ, right? We're representing Christ. A religious person belongs to a religious organization. A Christian belongs to Christ. A religious person believes the doctrines of religious teachers. A Christian believes the doctrine of Christ. A religious person desires the praise of men. But a Christian seeks the praise of Christ. A religious person seeks to avoid offending other religious people. And a Christian seeks to live at peace with everyone, but will stand for Christ against anyone. A religious person works to promote religious practices. A Christian works to promote Christ. A religious person loves religious activities and does those things. A Christian loves Christ and tries to do what pleases him. Notice tries to do, because we're not perfect. We're not perfect either. A religious person views the traditions of his religion as being authoritative. A Christian only recognizes the authority of Christ. A religious person finds the Bible interesting, maybe intellectually stimulating or mentally stimulating, but a Christian uses the Bible to know Christ, to get to know the Lord and understand His will for us. A religious person embraces the beliefs that sound right to them, and a Christian embraces whatever Christ teaches. And that's not always easy. It's like the difference of when you read in Judges, everybody did what they thought was right in their own mind, right? And the difference in that and actually doing what the Lord teaches us to do.
A religious person wears a religious mask, which is very different than their true self, maybe pretending to be perfect or superior. A Christian works to be more like Christ, but we recognize that we are a work in progress, and we are growing, and we are making mistakes. We make mistakes. A religious person glories in religious accomplishments. A Christian glories in the cross and what Christ did for us. A religious person experiments with all the allurements of the world through religion, pride and pleasure and power. A Christian forsakes the world for Christ. And that's my baker's dozen there, and I present that just in the hopes of helping keep our focus on Christ, on following the Lord. To close, I do want to read one verse, just one verse, be Philippians chapter 1, verse 21. This is one of those, it's a simple, short verse, and I feel like it makes its point, and it's very efficient, and it's clear and easy to understand. So Philippians chapter 1, verse 21, "For to me to live is Christ, and to die is gain." If you look at that, there's really mainly 2 points. To live is Christ, right? Because he's our source of life, our source of eternal life. He's our source of joy and our reason to live. And to die is gain. Because after we die, whether we sleep for a while or it happens immediately, whatever that time frame may be, after we die, the next thing we know, we will be with the Lord forever. So to live the life we are intended to live is to be in Christ, to follow Christ. And with those thoughts in mind, if anyone here has any need to come to the Lord or a need for prayers of the congregation or anything we could help you with, please come forward while we stand and sing. We're going to sing 315.